understand what's wrong, we have to look at how our brain evolved. The newest part, the forebrain, is just under the skull. It's the bit that does all the rational thinking. Deep beneath are the older, more instinctive parts that have been around for millions of years.
People often report that their brain freezes when they're in a terrifying situation. Well, there's a good reason for that. When you're frightened, an older, more primitive part of the brain takes over. Deep inside the temporal lobe, there's a structure called the amygdala, which is basically the threat-detecting organ in the brain. It receives direct sensory input, so if there's an unexpected explosion, information about that sonic event will reach the amygdala within about 12 milliseconds. Having got there, the amygdala can then set off a whole series of responses that may be appropriate to a threatening condition.
But there is a downside to having an older, more primitive part of the brain in charge of us.
We know, physiologically, that when you're literally scared out of your wits, that the forebrain shuts down. There's nobody home. You and I know you can't have an argument or discussion with a frightened or an angry human being. Well, why can't you have a logical, rational discussion with a frightened human being? Because there's nobody home.
I was intrigued. I had to test this. I had to get scared out of my wits and see what happened.
No! You're going to feel your throat dry up. You're going to start shaking. It's all adrenaline, so don't worry. It's pure natural.
John Braun is a martial arts teacher with a difference. He's a bouncer with direct experience of over 100 street fights. He trains for real, scaring his students with the kind of intimidation that they're likely to face from a mugger. John's techniques are based on the idea that when the body's terrified, when the adrenaline's flowing, you can't think, never mind defend yourself. Our first test was to say no 3 times and hit John's arm. He was playing the aggressive punter, me, the bouncer.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going?
No! I forgot everything. That's the most simple thing. All I had to do was walk out, when he stuck his arm out, hit it and shout no. Just 2 things. That's walking and chewing gum. Completely forgot what I had to do. I was hitting him, hit you there first, I think. Forgot to shout no. I didn't know whether I was supposed to walk past him or stand still. Jesus Christ, my mind just went blank. This is so easy to fuck up. I can't believe it. You know, I walked into that thing backwards, nearly fell over. I wasn't aware of anything else except that big arm and trying to hit it like that.
Yeah, because then it was tunnel vision as well. So that's everything. Could you see them people down there? You didn't see the bag. Well, obviously, I didn't even see the bag because once you start bump, you only see this. What did you see? This?
It wasn't just tunnel vision. It was like a mental tunnel as well. I couldn't have told you what my mother's name was, what day of the week I was born on, or anything like that. All I could think about was that.
But imagine if it's real life, you've only one chance.
To find yourself suddenly relying on your instincts is a novel experience for most modern humans. Dave Grossman's theory is that when soldiers experience this effect in battle, their own primitive instincts actually may be stopping them from killing.
The forebrain, the part of the brain that makes us a human being, is literally, physiologically shut down. And the hindbrain, the part of the brain that's the same as your dog, is in charge. Well, if your dog has a pretty powerful innate resistance against killing its own kind, then maybe our little puppy brain does too.
It seems our brain becomes almost pre-human. Far from being the violent ape, we're more likely to revert to non-killing instincts, something we share with almost all animals. Soldiers get caught between a rational desire to kill for queen and country and a highly evolved biological instinct that says, "Thou shalt not kill."
The Truth About Killing continues now, and for this part of the programme contains footage of a judicial execution in China, which some may find disturbing.
I was halfway through my journey to investigate a military claim, which seemed to show that only 2% of men really want to kill the enemy. I'd met soldiers, psychiatrists and experts, and they all contended that the figures proved one important thing about humans, that, in the heat of battle, the vast majority of us have a strong instinct not to kill.
Perhaps the survival instinct is survival of the species. And when the forebrain shuts down, all of our cognitive rational processing goes away, and we see another member of our own species, and our innate gut response is, hey, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be standing back to back and facing off the tigers and the wolves.
I don't think killing's a natural thing. I think it takes a heck of a lot of forceful thought to make someone kill another person. And you have to sort of lock out the normal humanity that most of us possess most of the time, thank God, to be able to do that job, to be able to kill someone else. It's not something that is a natural thing to do.
The idea that killing our own goes against human nature makes sense. But we've all seen news reports from war zones of soldiers blazing away quite easily. How can this be explained?
Think of two dogs fighting each other. One of the dynamics is not active fighting, not fighting to kill, but posturing. You know, out in the schoolyard, you see a lot of posturing. You know, you see a lot of this. And I'm not fighting. If I wanted to kill you, I'd go for the throat, you know, or go for the eyes. But I'm not doing that. Right. What's happening is we're engaging in posturing dynamics. That's not fighting, and it's not flight. It's posturing. Now, then you have submission. You can go like this. I don't want to do that. You've submitted. You've cringed.
So you're not running away.
You're not running away. But in a healthy environment, you've established, hey, you're the alpha male. I'm subordinate. I accept your dominance. And in a healthy environment, the alpha male will let it go at that.
Lieutenant Colonel Grossman believes that in battle, when adrenaline shuts down the forebrain, men will instinctively posture rather than kill. It's what all animals do when fighting their own species. They try to settle disputes by making huge displays of supremacy. Their contests may look savage, but they rarely end in death.
So does that explain all the people who aren't shooting to kill? They're just shooting to say, we've got a gun.
Sure. You see lots of posturing, which they're firing into the air, trying to stun the enemy. Firearms is just this awesome posturing tool.
Grossman's remarkable theory suggests that what men instinctively want to do in battle is scare off the enemy, and there's certainly anthropological data that bears this out. Many tribal conflicts were largely symbolic affairs with lots of shouting and mockery. Few people were actually killed. And even more recent conflicts, such as Waterloo, were marked by massive displays of posturing. Dr. Gary Sheffield is a senior historian to the British Army and an expert on the battles of the 19th and 20th centuries.
We tend to have an image in our mind that Napoleonic battles were decided by lines of men coming up against each other and blazing away with muskets. Well, in fact, I think it's much more about psychology.
This explains why armies wore such brightly coloured uniforms. They might seem ridiculous to those of us brought up in an age of camouflage. You might as well pin a target on your chest as wear this stuff. But they are designed precisely because the wearer wants to be seen. The epaulettes, the shiny braid, even the size of the hats. They're saying, we're bigger than you. And the noise these armies made, from bagpipes to drummers to the rebel yell, they were all there to scare the enemy away before a battle started.
It's not just about killing people. If you can make the other side break and run by threatening them, by advancing, by looking terrifying, that's more than half the battle won.
Just the sound of those bayonets going on is quite...
Absolutely. Particularly if you're advancing against an enemy and suddenly you see people yelling. Right. And this is the point at which the psychological warfare starts to kick in. Because one side is advancing determinedly on the other. And it was really almost a game of chicken. Whose nerve would break first?
But if no one broke and the two sides came together, you'd expect the slaughter to begin. However, once again, the data seems to support the theory of mass non-firing. Back in the late 1700s, the Prussian army conducted an experiment to see how effective their infantry were.
They basically took a unit and had them firing their muskets at a series of paper screens at different ranges. and their hit rate